Think of the people you interact with every day. Would you want to spend a day in a canoe with them? This show is about hearing stories from exceptional people that can help jumpstart and inspire you to create the life you want. One filled with wealth, wisdom, meaning, and purpose. And that starts with surrounding yourself with the right people. And the people I'm interviewing, I believe you'd want to spend a day with in a canoe. I'm your host, Nathan Mercereau. I'm excited to welcome Jeff Kleintop to the Day in a Canoe podcast today. Jeff is the Chief Global Investment Strategist for Charles Schwab. So Jeff, when you were a kid, did you have like a board where you said, I want to be maybe an astronaut, maybe a doctor, or maybe Charles Schwab's Chief Global Investment Strategist? How did you land where you're at?
That's funny. Well, when I was in middle school, I remember it was 6th or 7th grade. And I thought at the time, this is after Star Wars had come out. And I thought, oh man, being an astronaut or an astronomer just seemed like unraveling the mysteries of the universe seemed to be like the highest calling, an incredible challenge. And I remember they had these career books at the library. And I looked up, okay, well, how long do you have to go to school? And it was like a lot of school, right? And then I said, well, how much money do you make? And whoa, I don't know how old those books were. They could have been from the 60s, but like that didn't seem like a lot of money for what seemed to be answering the most important challenges in the universe. So I said, let me think about this. And it was in high school. I remember when in '87 when the stock market crashed. And I remember just being grabbed by that. Like, wow, what happened? And what is this mystery of the stock market and businesses? And I just kind of got drawn into it. And so I went as a business undergrad and decided that I wanted to be an options trader because I thought of all the investing world, gosh, that seems so challenging. You've got stocks, but then you've got options on top of that and the trading. And so I ended up going to grad school and getting an opportunity as an intern to be an options trader. And I was terrible at it. I just couldn't quite put I couldn't marry my love of the big picture to a trade. Nathan, like trading is like 1 or 2 steps down the road. You get economic data in the morning and boom, boom. And I'm thinking 10 steps down the road. It just didn't connect for me. So long story short, I ended up helping to start this RIA firm, a registered investment advisory firm out of grad school, and ran that for a number of years. Realized I wasn't very good at running a business either. So I had to sell that off. And then ultimately I found my place as a chief investment strategist because I love the big picture. I was at PNC and then moved on to LPL Financial and then was looking for a bigger stage, kind of a bigger opportunity to interface with people. And the Schwab opportunity came along and the ability to really focus on the global picture, Nathan, is something that really brought me in. To have someone like Liz Ann Saunders covering the U.S. for us is great. And that really frees me up to dive into what I think is really interesting with all of the economic and political and social aspects of what's going on around the world, including in China and in Europe and Latin America, Africa. Really fascinating things. So I was really drawn to that. And that's kind of how I ended up where I am. I guess I've been here about 7 years now.
That's great. So what do you do on a daily basis? Do you have like a giant globe of the world and you spin it and you kind of like, okay, where my finger lands, that's where we're going to be honing in on today. It's Uzbekistan Day. I mean, how does it work in your kind of work rhythm?
No, that's it. That's exactly how I do it. That's every morning.
I knew it. Yeah, finally.
It's funny. So I wouldn't have said this maybe 10 years ago, but the first thing I do in the morning is I grab my phone, right off the nightstand, as I'm brushing my teeth or whatever, I am looking at Twitter. I follow a lot of reporters in Asia and Europe, and they're just filing their stories on what markets are doing or politics or economics in their countries in those days. Select reporters, not just anybody, people who I trust, people I have long relationships with. And so I can, in 200 characters or less, get a good sense of what's going on in those major news stories. I don't need to read the whole thing. I get it pretty tightly summarized for me in just a few minutes. And then I'll usually jump into Bloomberg. Bloomberg, I've had one for 20 years or so. I just plug it in like an IV and just start digging into the data, looking at the economic releases, plotting them on charts, taking a look at the markets. And that's kind of how I get started. And then that takes me on a trend for the day. Is it a day where the Fed is going to make some kind of announcements? Well, I'm probably going to be conferring with Kathy Jones, who's our fixed income strategist, or Liz Ann Saunders on the US side. Maybe there's something coming out of Washington, so I want to talk to Mike Townsend on political developments. Or maybe he wants to talk to me about what's going on with the German or French elections. So there's a lot of that collaboration going on. And then, yeah, it's wherever that takes us in terms of doing additional research. We're in the midst of earnings season right now as we're filming this today, and so there's a lot of parsing through earnings reports. We get a lot of the big FAANG companies reporting this week. So what are they saying? What does the demand picture look like for them? As we're getting some of the manufacturing companies reporting, what are the supply chain shortages looking like? How is that affecting their businesses? And we look at the service side. What about wages and the shortages of labor and maybe increasing strikes across America and around the world, and union pay demands? What is that going to do to profit margins potentially as we look out to the next quarter and the next year? So all those things kind of are sparks that kind of take me off in different directions, making every day a little different.
We've done a number of webinars together, and so grateful for your contribution to the time that we spend helping our clients and connections understand the financial markets. And we always get the same feedback. Jeff does such a great job of taking the data and just boiling it down to succinct, digestible sound bites. How did you learn that? Like, for someone who's thinking about being very analytical in a profession or a career track, but yet being clear in communication, how did you develop the skill set to communicate well?
Oh, well, thanks for recognizing that. It's something I've worked very hard on. It doesn't come naturally. I remember the first time I was ever really up in front of an audience presenting my outlook on the markets. This is over 2 decades ago. And I thought I did a great job. And I came back and I remember sitting down, kind of patting myself on the back. And my boss said, "Well, how'd it go?" I said, "It went great." And he said, "Oh, okay. What were the questions?" And I said, "Oh, no, there weren't any questions." And I went, "Oh, wait a minute." Maybe they didn't get what I was talking about. And I recognized from that very first miscue that I needed to focus a lot on my audience and what are they hearing? What are they thinking about? What are they hearing based on what I said? And where are their questions taking them? And so I've become much more attuned to more what people are hearing than what I'm saying. And I guess just, constant repetition. It just came over and over again, either on stage or on TV or through, videos that I do, just trying to refine that to make sure people are hearing the message that I'd like them to make my ideas their ideas. And, I've tried different things. I do this fun stuff where I do these 90-second videos and I hold up these little things of just talking about, hey, what's going on? Hey, the FANGs are out with earnings this week, just a little Halloween themed stuff. But it's cute and it's a memory device, right? It's a way of getting people to remember what you said because it's what they retained and what they heard, not what you said. And I'm just always focusing on that. And I think I can always get better. And I'm just always trying to improve that. I can't say that I modeled myself after anyone in particular. I didn't go, "Ooh, that person's great. Let me focus on that." But there are 2 things I did try and do. One was, and I'm real bad at this one, still working on it, was I studied William Shatner. Yeah, William Shatner, because this guy never speaks in more than 3 words at a time.
I like them.
Long pauses, right? And I need pauses because people need time to digest what you're saying. And I like to talk fast, obviously, as I am right now. So trying to get myself to slow down and say, it's okay to put in a pause and let people catch up a little bit. So I try to work on that. And the other person was Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry has a way of taking a joke that's 100 words long and delivering it in 45 words and making it punchier and more effective. And I love that. It's that sort of science of how can you omit words and get the message across maybe in a way that's even more effective. And so I study those 2 people and how they communicate. And they're not the typical people you'd find talking about the markets, but for me, they help me.
Yeah, that's great. A friend of mine gave me great advice one time, and he said, always speak into the person's listening. And when we consider how people listen, like you're presenting, that will change the words that come out. And the other point of view that I had shared with me is just let people talk and ask questions, because that fosters communication. And some of the best communicators are definitely the best listeners. So I think those are great points that our audience can benefit from as they think about improving their communication. So besides William Shatner and Jerry Seinfeld, looking back at your career, any other people of influence or moments of influence, like you look back and say, wow, that was, just kind of like your onstage moment where your boss gave you some feedback. Any other things that stand out to you in your journey?
When CNBC first started, it was the FNN, Financial News Network, and I watched it in college. And ever since the '87 crash, I was just every day was watching financial news. And I just said, one day, I want to be on that. I want to be interviewed as an expert. My life goal, maybe one time I'll be able to be on. And this was, somewhere in 2000, it was a couple decades ago. A call came in to our research department for an analyst that had left 2 years ago. And it was a call from, it was actually Bloomberg, I think, who had called. They wanted to ask about something going on with AT&T. And our telecom analyst had left, replaced by another guy. And the admin who took the call just turned to me and said, "What do you want me to tell him?" And I said, "Give it to me." And I took the phone and I said, "I can do it." And they said, "Great. Just head down to we've got a studio. It's, 10 blocks down. Just be down there in a half an hour." Got it. I didn't ask compliance. I didn't ask my boss. I didn't ask permission. I just wanted this so bad. And so I raced down there, got in front of the camera and had some ideas about what I wanted to say. And I remember the interviewer asked me the question and I said, "That's not really the issue at all. Here's what's really going on." And I just went off for 4 minutes. And at the end of it, I was just thrilled. I was just on cloud nine, like, I did it. And they said, "Hey, that was great. Let's book you again for next week." And I went, "What? What?" And so that's kind of how the whole TV thing started off. And I would say, if anything, pre-internet, pre-Twitter, Facebook, all these things really mattered. It was being on financial news television and that one appearance and then getting booked again and then having to go back and say, "Oh, compliance, can I please do this?" And getting the okay and all of that. It was a seminal moment in kind of stepping out and kind of creating more of a public brand, if you will, and becoming a better communicator as a result of it. So that was certainly an important point. And I know, had I never done that, I never would have been asked to write a book. I never would have, gotten so many other opportunities had I not demonstrated some capability of being on television. And I just want to do it once.
And for the sake of viewers to gain perspective, what might be the scope of media obligations that you have over the course of, a quarter, a year? Like, what's your schedule look like now with the media?
It's funny. So joining Schwab, there's so many incredibly talented voices that do a lot of television. So back at my prior firms, I was it. So I would make sure I would do CNBC and Bloomberg and maybe Fox Business and CNN. I'd do them all once a week. And so it was a lot. And I would talk to reporters. I'd probably do 3 to 5 print interviews a day and 1 television interview a day. It's a lot, in addition to everything else. Now, it's not quite as hectic as that. Maybe it's half of that. Maybe it's a third of that, because we've got so many other talented people who are also out there from Schwab delivering messages in the markets. And the fact that I cover kind of a different world than I did before. It's not everything. So if a question comes in on the Fed, there's a much better person to handle that than me at Schwab. But if a question comes in about, hey, what's going on in China right now, I'm the person. Or what's going on with the European Central Bank meeting today, or those types of things. Those are the ones I'll field and offer some commentary and insight on. So it's a big part of what I do, but I used to do it at a much higher frequency, so it's almost old hat now.
And how did you evolve and cultivate your global perspective? Did you do a lot of travel? Did you just have a curiosity about other countries, other languages? How did that kind of evolve for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess I've always had it a little bit. I kind of grew up around the world. I was born in the U.S., but then my father worked for the DuPont company and in a medical services business, and we ended up traveling around the world. We lived in the UK. When I have a passport, I have passport photos of me like every year of my life. Lived in the UK, Germany, Tokyo, Latin America, different parts of the world. A new place every couple of years, and up and down the East Coast as well. Ended up my last year of high school here in the U.S. And so I guess I always kind of felt the world was a little a little smaller than a lot of people do, and saw a lot of similarities everywhere I was in terms of how people lived, and just people are people, and so when I learn about these things, economics or politics or markets never seemed that far away to me. It seemed like something I could relate to. So maybe that's part of the basis of why I kind of gravitate to the global picture. But I also think there's just so much more there that isn't covered as heavily as what goes on in the U.S. And so there's more opportunity to discover things, and I love that discovery part of what I do. I love learning every day, and so when I can uncover some new relationship or learn something that I didn't know before that's really valuable and I can put to use, that's real exciting for me.
And is that what motivates you at this stage? I mean, you've had such a storied career. What is the thing that really fuels you and energizes you?
Yeah, I think it is. It's that sense of discovery. It's coming in, and I tell my team this all the time. We're always working on projects. 9 out of 10 of them go nowhere. They're dead ends. It doesn't work out. The data doesn't exist because Germany wasn't unified in the 80s, or the European Eurozone didn't exist then, or whatever. There's some data gaps. It's not quite as deep and detailed as the US, or as frequent in many ways. So sometimes we can't get the data, or the history of the company doesn't go back. Some companies only report semi-annually and not quarterly as they do in the US. So there are often challenges there that cause us to just not be able to find the proof points that we need to draw some conclusions. But when we do, it's so exciting, and I just want to tell the world. So that's why I love the communication aspect of what I do. And when I find something really neat, to be able to share it is the most fun I can have.
Yeah, that's great. So as we get ready to wrap up our conversation, one thing that I ask guests is, what advice would you give a younger self? You've had some experiences and learned a lot of lessons, but looking back, what would you share with, say, a 20-year-old Jeff?
I made so many mistakes. I told you I was a terrible trader. I didn't run the business very well. Probably there's a decent percentage of TV appearances that if I went back and watched them now, I would cringe at what I said or how I said it. But yeah, I never let it hold me back. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, 20-year-old Jeff. Raise your hand, get out there, take a chance at it. Those things that you stumble on, you learn from as well, but there's going to be successes along the way, and try not to minimize risk, but just, career risk or market risk or anything, but managing that risk is really important. Taking, smart risks, but not being afraid of the occasional setback. And, sometimes when I speak at colleges relatively often, and this is one of the things I try and tell everybody: don't be afraid of taking a leap and doing something you're not even sure how to do. Just commit to it. You'll figure it out. And if it doesn't work out for you, it's okay. It's not a career destroyer. And I think that's really important in taking those risks and managing your career. It sounds like an easy thing to say, take the risks, but when you're in those situations, it's like, I don't know if I should. I'm so glad I took the ones that I did.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you for spending time in the canoe today. And I would definitely spend a day in a canoe with you, Jeff. So it's been a pleasure having our conversations over the years, and grateful for the work and contribution that you make with your advice, your research, and your communication of that. So all the best in your days ahead.
Thank you. Well, my pleasure, Nathan. It's always great. And I'm looking forward to spending time face-to-face with you. It's been a while since we've been able to be face-to-face, but looking forward to that in 2022. So thanks for this opportunity. And as always, anytime I can be of service, just reach out to me.
All right. Always good to see you.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you for listening and tuning in to Day in a Canoe. We are thrilled to have you as part of our community. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and share it with your friends and loved ones. You can always get more information at dayinacanoe.com. We'll see you next time.